this looks like he's sliding around without animating. Yeah, this looks like he's sliding around without animating. Yeah, this looks like he's sliding around without animating. Yeah, this looks like he's sliding around without animating. Yeah, this looks like he's sliding around without animating.
Hey, Lucia. Hey, everybody. Hey, Lucia. Hey, everybody. Let's see. Might as well get started. We just pushed an update to the Nms Viewer. Some of you guys may have already been hit with that. I think it should probably force the update automatically. So you should see a few differences with that. Let's see. Shadows should work now. Animesh object should get rendered the same way as mesh attachments. And the other big change is changing the rules for what can be in an animesh link set. So it used to be that we only took meshes, right? You could have a collection of mesh objects and flag them as an animesh, and now you can basically have an arbitrary collection of prims and flag them as an animesh. So probably the main application of that is to allow you to have a root object that's something other than a mesh. But if you want to have non-mesh objects floating around elsewhere in your link set, then that's also a possibility. So yeah, let us know how that all goes. I think there's a few other miscellaneous bug fixes and crashes that don't crash anymore and so forth. It's not all fixed. There's plenty of other stuff left to do, but hopefully that will give people a little bit of extra scope for testing. What's a legacy root issue? If you delink an animesh character from it, it stays active with control character still set, and land impact is 1. You can flag a non-mesh prim as an animated mesh if you want to. It doesn't really do you any good, but I think there is an optimization in there, so it won't actually bother to create a control avatar for it. So there shouldn't be much performance impact to doing it. But in the testing I've done, I didn't have any problems with unchecking animated mesh or linking things to it in the future. So if you have cases where you're seeing that with the current viewer, then definitely file a JIRA and I'll take a look at it. I think it should be okay now, but just give it a shot and let us know. Let's see. So what else? So just working our way through the existing issues. There's still some bugs to address. I think on the design side, the biggest open question is the stuff we've been talking about a bit in the forum and also in these meetings, which is uh, the question of how we would try to support accessories. I'm definitely interested in continuing the discussion there. Is my voice messed up, or is nobody else talking? I haven't heard anything so far.
You sound good.
No.
Okay, yay! Somebody said something. Um, so I'm happy to talk about that, and otherwise we can throw it up to general questions. Lexi, you said you didn't have anything for this week.
Nope, not this week.
All right. Oh, I see. We've also got Ryder here. Ryder, do you want to give us a quick EAP date while we're
Eep
while
date.
we're all together?
I am getting very close to removing the old environment code, so we'll be able to the viewer at least will be using all the new stuff. And once that's in, I can start having things in and out of inventory. And when I can get things into and out of inventory, then I'll probably be releasing a project viewer.
So how does that work? You need special simulators to do that too, and it'll be like some test regions on a DD.
Yeah, we'll set some test regions up here initially. But yeah, the simulator will have to be aware of the new settings objects.
Yeah, well, that sounds really cool. Are there any plans for water? I'm not aware of any. You mean for the EAP stuff?
For the
Is
stuff,
that part of EAP
well,
water settings?
we're we're moving the water settings into objects, but uh, what uh, what do you mean?
So it's the same settings you already have, but it just gives you
It's,
access to them
yeah,
through
I don't have
these items.
right. Yeah, I don't have plans for any big changes to the way water to water. Yes, you will be getting extra sky features. No, nothing, nothing planned for terrain.
Yeah, it would be nice to fix the texture density issue on the terrain, but I don't think it's on anybody's radar right now. Hi, Carrie. Nothing new on the linking unlinking mod keys. That's one of the topics that we'll probably want to kick around this meeting, but we haven't said anything about it yet. So I don't know if people have been following on the forums, but we've had some interesting posts on the subject of uh, how to support accessories and what kinds of things people are interested in doing and that they try to do with their objects now. One thing I'm a little curious to get a handle on is, to what extent the animesh is, if we don't have any special techniques for mod keys or whatever, are we really worse off with animesh, or are we basically in the same boat that we are now with existing objects? It sounds like one way that people can kind of work around the issue with existing objects is using sculpts, and they can kind of swap the textures on a sculpt without actually changing the link set. So I was curious if there were other things like that make it less of a problem in the non-mesh space. Is that a pretty common technique, or are there other things out there? Yeah, I remember when we first came out with Mesh, we didn't have VUID swapping because because of the potential for using it as an extremely inefficient animation technique. But I suppose that if there was some appropriate throttling, that you could conceivably use something like that. That's an approach we haven't really talked about yet. Yeah, no, I realize the sculpts aren't ideal. I think the mod keys approach is pretty nice. The appealing thing about that is that it doesn't require us to kind of redefine the structure of the scene. Like what kinds of objects exist and who can be a child of what and so forth. If you think about changing that, like to be able to have a link set that's a child of a an animesh avatar that's a child of an avatar and so forth. It's that kind of change is fairly scary because that there really isn't any centralized place in the code where we kind of enforce that stuff. There's just dozens and dozens of functions that all kind of assume things work a certain way, and if they don't work that certain way, then that particular function is going to stop working. So I think it's a much larger hairball to fix that. And even if we did have this notion of being able to res from inventory, this is the idea that there's kind of an avatar, pseudo avatar object, and then the animeshes are kind of children of it that live in its inventory. Even if you have that, you've still got the question of permissions coming up, right? If you buy a new accessory, that's a new animesh. Well, now it needs to go into the inventory of that object. So, that root object still needs to have modify permissions for somebody to be able to do that. Lucy, explain, why doesn't it? Allow inventory drop bypasses mod. Oh, that's interesting. Um, yeah, so I think the biggest issue is the way it changes the structure of the scene graph. It's I think a much larger project. I think the mod keys thing could probably be implemented fairly quickly if we don't run into any security or permission snags, but obviously that you'd have to be super careful to make sure that everything actually worked as advertised there. But it's a little speculative how hard any of these things are until we've actually looked at them. At this point, we're just kind of thinking about it at a high level, approximately what would be involved. Oh, okay, thanks, Simon. Yeah. No, at least there's no definite decision on how we're going to do this, or if we're going to be able to do it at all. I'm just talking about the different possibilities at this point. Uh, Beck, I'm not sure if I'm following your comment. Permissions cannot be withdrawn from items that have been sold. Like what kind of permission? Yeah, Brilliant. The current setup does allow animeshes to be linked together. The issue comes up if people want to be able to have different objects that are no mod and still be able to have them be part of the same animesh object. If they're no mod, then you can't link them together. And so from a kind of a marketplace perspective, if you want to be able to sell something to people that they don't have the permissions to modify after the fact, then it's hard to get them all to play nicely together in a common animesh object. Yeah, the mod key type capability cannot be allowed to withdraw it at a later date. Yeah, I don't know how you would enforce that. It's if you've got the script capability, well, the object can run a script anytime, and the script can modify a key anytime. Um, so, unless you have the notion that a key is a kind of a one-time, um, basically the key can only be set once for a given object. Um, but then I think you're going to get the other problem that if a key ever leaks, then you basically lose the protection. You don't have any way to kind of re-key your object. Yeah, I should clarify again. We're just talking about different possible proposals at this point. There's no definite decision on what the best solution is, and it's entirely possible the best solution is something that nobody's even brought up yet. Yeah, if we allow linking of no mod objects, if I understand it, the concern there is that people can basically stick their own nefarious scripts into the link set at the same time. Yeah, a change to the permission system is a fairly scary prospect for anybody who's tried to work with the permission system that we already have. But even if we're considering that, what we need to have this specific proposal. What exactly would we need to do to the permission system to solve the problem here?
It's just a thought. Of course, I'm not a coder, so take it with a grain of salt. But it seems to me that we could have a decent security system if we had some kind of like feature that says only scripts by this person can run. Only scripts by the original creator can run, or something like that.
So who says that only scripts by the original creator can run? This is like a property of the object?
Well, I'm not sure
of
exactly
the
how it would,
animesh.
I'm not sure exactly how it would work, but I would think that something like that could be a pretty secure measure, because if you're the creator of the product and all the scripts have your name on it and only scripts by this creator can run on this product, that seems pretty secure to me.
I mean, does that work even in the case that you've got, one, one company or whatever that's producing stuff, but it's not actually all the content is made by one person? Can you
Well,
change the creator?
well, of course, that's always going to be an issue. Who's the one that everything goes under? But I mean, that's a problem each creator has to solve themselves. I mean, we can't, of course, write
Right.
everything in there.
But I mean, is there any technical way that they can go in and tweak the creator flag, or is it just permanent?
Well, maybe it could be a list. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, maybe. I mean, you could imagine some rule like, well, okay, you can link together, you can link together no mod objects, but only if they all have the same creator, right? That gives you a sort of security, unless somebody breaks into your account and creates a nefarious script under your name or something. Yeah, I mean, one appealing thing about the mod key is that at least you've got some potential for sharing. I mean, if it's just a sort of a secret key that you know A and B know about and C doesn't know about, then A and B can make objects that collaborate together. But it's at that point it's kind of security through obscurity. You can't be sure that the key's never going to leak. So the suggestion that the scripts should receive requests and decide whether to accept them, and what information do they have to decide whether to accept them or not?
Just another thought on my idea of using creators names. If each create, we also have groups. So if an object was linked to a group, then the object could say everyone in this group's all their scripts can run. That would be a pretty efficient way to handle security for objects, I would think.
I guess I should probably pause here for a second. Obviously this is a big topic. I think there's probably plenty of scope to discuss it for the rest of the meeting and beyond, and I'm fine with continuing to talk about it. But in case anybody has any shorter questions, maybe we could give them a chance to jump in for a second. Don't want to have the meeting completely tied up with the accessories discussion if there's other things people want to talk about. Yeah, baking on mesh. So let's see, what was the last thing I heard about that? The last I heard, they had done some performance testing, and we're going to need to add additional bake hosts to account for the additional cost of doing the higher resolution textures. So I think we're in the process of trying to get that sorted now. That was the last thing I heard earlier this week, so I'm not sure exactly where we are with that. Let's see. Question about what's the biggest problem changing sims or resing into a sim? Let's see. If Simon's still around, he may have a more detailed take on this. So my understanding is that a lot of it has to do with the overhead of transferring objects between regions. You kind of have to bundle everything up and ship it off and then unpack it on the other side. And that is the main cause of kind of lagginess when you're crossing. Simon, is that a fair characterization? Scripts?
Yeah, I mean
Okay.
the the whole process of stopping your objects and saving all the state and all those scripts, transferring that over to the other region, reloading it into the world. There's just enough steps there that it gets slow, and the bigger that data is, the worse it gets. And scripts are kind of like the easiest way to make that blow up into a lot of data. Yeah, I do all the other ones in chat.
So a question about bakes on mesh. I should clarify that the thing that we're trying to get released now is just an update to the baking service, which increases the texture resolution to 1024. It's not the whole bakes on mesh thing, which is kind of a follow on to that, but it's the first step. Um, the the idea is that once you've got a collection of baked meshes, right? You've got however many meshes get baked for your avatar now, upper body and lower body and head and so forth. That then we would need to add a capability to say, for each face in a mesh, you want to apply one of these textures as the one of these baked textures as the texture. So you'd have to have some kind of a chooser to specify which one to use. If you've got a chunk of the mesh that you're thinking of as the upper body, then you need a way to flag that as okay. Use the upper body texture for this. So there's not a UI designed for it or anything, but that's conceptually what you'd need is some way to flag which baked texture applies to which part of the mesh. How would it be implemented? Is it implemented as a magic texture ID, or is it implemented as some additional data field in the object? I don't know. That's kind of that's kind of an implementation detail really, but the goal would be that at the user level you've got the control to specify what texture goes where. Yeah, and so there would be a way to manage that in the viewer somewhere in the somewhere in the edit tools for a mesh object. You'd be able to go in there and say, okay, I want to use baked on mesh, here, and I want to use this particular texture for that. Can't promise anything about baked normals and baked specular because that's not part of the current baking capabilities. The first piece we're looking at is really just being able to reuse the baked textures we already have, which are basically the diffuse textures.
I would assume too, in order to do specs and normals, you'd have some code that in there that says what part of the baked normals and everything you want to bake.
Yeah, that's really probably a larger question. That's would be more in the camp of if we're considering changes to the material system, we might want to look into that. But it's not really part of the initial kind of baked on mesh proposal.
Veer, did you see my video and where I talked about dropping prims?
I saw your video. I'm not remembering what you said about dropping prims in particular.
Well, this recent update that we had, well, I don't know if it's in this recent one, but about attaching animeshes to prims. So if the prim is now the root, we can drop a prim. So why can't we just get rid of the language that keeps us from dropping the mesh? Because even if it's the root is the prim, it still won't let us drop it if mesh is linked to it. So why can't we just get rid of that part and now we can drop an animesh?
Because there's code that's actually missing. I mean, to handle dropping meshes correctly, it requires additional code that doesn't exist on the simulator currently. I looked into this a little bit. It's you can if you hack things up to say, okay, we no longer forbid people to drop things, then you kind of can drop things, except firstly they all immediately topple over, and secondly they don't get the correct accounting. So including changes on the kind of physics side of things. So it's just one of those areas where the scope isn't at all clear, and it's not as simple as just saying, okay, now you can do this, unfortunately.
Well, I bring it up because I think it's a pretty key feature. It's difficult to imagine making something that you can't pick up and put right back down.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I think it's a kind of a clunky interface if everything has to be routed through inventory, to get taken off of the avatar. Polysale, we don't really have anything currently on our roadmap for reworking the material system. I know there's a lot of interest in it, and if our resource situation changes, I'm happy to discuss it, but we don't have anything currently in the works. All right. Do we have any other quick or semi-quick questions? I'm happy to go back to DRM and modkey and so forth discussions. If not, but didn't want it to get completely crowded out. Pathfinding issue. You can ask. I don't know a lot about pathfinding, and the answer is probably going to be file a JIRA. But if it's something that other folks here know about, then sure, fire away. Can't pathfind inside a hollow object. Yeah, I'm guessing it's probably using convex hulls somewhere in there, but don't know. Anybody else? Lucy says it was intended. Is there an appetite to review the default volume LOD factor? Short answer, yeah, we definitely want to review a bunch of things related to rendering cost and land impact calculations. Volume LOD factor definitely ties into that. Not getting a ton of free time to deal with that lately because we've still got lots going on with animesh, but it's definitely of interest. Let's see. Yeah, I think Falcon and Prep probably were the main people on pathfinding back in the day. Yeah, maybe LODing too soon. Well, that's the first time I heard things accused of LODing too soon. Usually we've got these models that are like a million polys that are 2 pixels wide, and they're still rendering a million polys. But yeah, maybe there are cases where that happens. Let's see. Well, yeah, these days the default is crank it up as high as you can, I think. Let's see, what else? Lucy asked about where VRLAND is running. I believe it's on the same host as the animesh, animesh 1 through 4 and animesh adult regions right now. So yeah, same server version. Actually, it's more complicated than that. I've got like 4 VRLANs, and 2 of them are running on a non-standard server, and 2 of them are running on the same host as animesh. Fix for Thingy and Firestorm. Yeah, Orly, I saw that. It's yeah. I mean, basically, you're just disabling the intended optimization there, and that may be the best fix. Um, ideally we would find a way to get the optimized code to actually work as intended, but if there's not a way to do that, or if we don't have time to sort it out, that may be the best way to go. Yeah, Horley, no, I haven't done any numbers on it. It's possible that the optimization isn't worth anything anyway.
Oh, about the hollowed out Prim and pathfinding, I would think that you could break up that hollowed out Prim into a number of meshes so that pathfinding, or you could set the pathfinding so it better handles it.
Lucy's asking about this debug setting. That's really just for QA. It's to allow the viewer to be oblivious to the restrictions it's supposed to be observing, so you can make sure that the server is enforcing the restrictions for you. So yeah, there will be a build that knows about that debug setting eventually, but it's not going to give you a way around any limits you don't like. It's just going to give you a way to find what the server error messages are. Yeah, sorry. I think there was a comment in there along those lines. If only it were that easy. Yeah, as I said, that's really only for QA. When we go to release, we'll probably take that out. Thoughts on land impact? No, as I mentioned at one of the past meetings, it's probably the last one. We're going to do performance testing to figure out the right numbers for these things, but you can't really do performance testing until you're pretty close to the final code base, right? Because there's going to be, bug fixes and optimizations and various things, going in before that point. So if you try to get the numbers before the code is about ready to release, then they're not going to be the right numbers. So that's going to be kind of one of the later stages when we think that animesh is getting very close to release. That we'll do a pass and do performance testing and update the numbers on that. So yes, there will definitely be changes. No, I don't think the land impact is, per animesh is going to be anywhere close to 200, but, I can't tell you what the exact numbers are going to be until we've got some measurements. Permissions discussion, yeah, it's definitely on the critical path for animesh release. If we're going to do something to support accessories, then, that's a key feature that we need to get in there. If we decide that it's, just way too big a project, and we're not going to do it, then that's also an important decision for getting it out to release. There's a question about putting up a mesh as copy only. I'm not following your question there. I mean, you want to allow copy but not modify or transfer?
I think with anything you do right now, I mean, since we don't have any changes or new features set up yet for this whole attachment with animesh problem, I mean, you plan on doing what you do now with products, and we'll try and get a better solution. We realize it's a problem, but other than that, you pretty much got to do what you're doing now. Well, Carrie, I'm just trying to answer. There's a question about what to do with putting a mesh on the marketplace, and you guys, I think, understand the permission system, crazy as it is, pretty well, and unless we change it or add a feature to it, just keep doing what you're doing, or you have the same choices that you have now to put a mesh like that on the marketplace.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of what the best settings are going to be in the marketplace is really still pretty open, since we don't even know how or whether we're going to support any kind of accessorizing. But I think probably the most useful thing to do at this point is to be testing more at the feature level, making sure that the animesh stuff works as intended. giving us a shout about bugs if you find them. And once stuff works, then we can try to figure out the kind of best practices as well.
We'll all just forget that you guys implied you might not support it, okay?
I don't think I implied it. I think I stated it outright. But if you want to see it as an implication, I guess that's okay. I'm not saying I would be enthusiastic about releasing without it. I'm just saying that there's no definite guarantees on anything at this point. We're still talking about kind of alternative approaches and trying to figure out how feasible they are.
Yeah, I mean, you guys can kind of tell from this discussion, this is not an easy problem. And, it would be, if there was a solution that we've come on that just like seems like a slam dunk, yeah, I think we could settle on it pretty easy, but it's a really hard one to get right.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a technical standpoint, the Modkeys proposal, is fairly straightforward. It's not, you don't know for sure until you try it. But the question is, are there, basically, how secure is it? Are there exploits, and what are the best practices? Is there actually a viable way to use it? That doesn't cause people to get screwed over by having things that they can't, things that they bought but can't control, and it's basically another potential guise for DRM, and I think everybody knows that there's zillions of possible issues with DRM. So, I don't think it's a simple technical question of can we implement these these LSL functions. The devil's really in the details.
I had actually one of the details on the use of that. If in accessorizing your animesh creature or avatar or whatever it is, do you want to have it so that only the creators made items can be attached? So you make your line of accessories and people buy them. Or are you also looking at and really need a limited extra set of builders, that your 10 other people want to make accessories and sell them, and that helps make your product wildly popular because it's got so many things you can do with it. Do you care about that?
That is generally the case, that many creators make a product and then give out dev kits for other creators to make products for it. And it is generally true that the more creators you have creating for a product line, the more popular it will be.
Yep, I totally agree with you, and that's the big suspicion there, because that's where the mod keys is tough, because that has to be distributed, and as soon as you start distributing it, it's not very secure anymore. So, that's a big catch there. So, I don't mean to shoot that specifically down, but that's just an example of why this is really such a tough problem. There isn't an outstanding solution that magically gets everything done right.
And
but we're gonna, we're putting serious thought and time into it. We'd like to solve it, because if we could, it would be really great. We understand that.
And this is why I brought up the connecting everything to an avatar, because to me that's ultimately the most secure way.
Okay, so I guess it's getting kind of late to get into a deep discussion about this now because we're already past time. But even if there weren't technical questions about the feasibility of the putting everything in an avatar, I think I really need to talk through whether that has security implications as well. I'm not sure how much access, like one attachment has to another attachment today, that sort of thing. But so if you can you get the same kinds of issues with people being able to drop bad actor objects into the inventory of their avatars, that sort of thing. Yeah. All right. Well, we should probably wrap it up for this meeting, and I think a lot of these discussions are getting detailed enough that it's kind of hard to have them in chat anyway. I would definitely encourage people to continue the discussion in the forum posts, and I'll definitely be putting up some additional kind of questions and comments there as well, and we can kind of follow up and see where we're going with all this. In terms of meeting schedules, we will be meeting next week. The week after that is holiday in the U.S., so we won't be meeting, and then kind of back on our usual schedule, everything except the first Thursday. No, we do have a meeting next week. We don't have a meeting the following week because of Thanksgiving. All right. Well, see you next week and or on the forums. Have a good one.